An NFL head coach is one of the best jobs in all of sports. They are often shown on TV, they are quoted during news conferences, and they are also put in a lot of pressure to succeed. But how did they get there? Most NFL head coaches used to be players in the NFL, and they know a lot about the game and what it is like to be a player in the league. This is one of the factors when a team considers hiring a coach. Some coaches like Mike Ditka, Jeff Fisher, Mike Singletary, and Jim Harbaugh all played in the NFL and were very successful. But just being an NFL player won't cut it if you want to be an NFL coach. Some coaches start in college as a head coach and start moving up the ranks of Division I until they are considered as an NFL coach. Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, and Steve Spurrier are some coaches that have made the journey from college to NFL. More than any other way to get in the NFL as a head coach is to be successful as a coordinator or assistant on the team. A coordinator is just steps behind the head coach, and more than not will take over as the intern if a head coach is fired. Some coaches who took over as their head coach was fired were Leslie Frazier, Mike Singletary, and Jason Garrett. Because of their initiative and a couple of wins, it showed the fans and the general manager that they were capable of being the head coach. Rarely, a coach will come from the Arena Football League or a Canadian Football League, but it can happen. Although there hasn't been a successful coach who came to the NFL, there has been a few. I read somewhere how important it is in life, not necessarily to be strong, but to feel strong. To measure yourself at least once. Chris McCandless, Into the Wild. An NFL coach can also be judged on their confidence in the team and in themselves. Coach Rex Ryan has a lot of confidence and shows it in news conferences and interviews. And although he may not be the best coach, he probably won't be fired for being the way he is. According to the moral absolutism that characterizes McCandless's beliefs, a challenge in which a successful outcome is assured isn't a challenge at all. John Krakauer, Into the Wild. This pertains to some NFL coaches that take over after very famous and successful coaches, like Jim Caldwell of the Colts. Caldwell took over after the very famous Tony Dungy, and in his first year led the Colts to the Super Bowl. But in his next year, he barely made it to the playoffs, and ended up losing to the Jets in the first round. So you could argue that it was Dungy's team that got him to the Super Bowl, and now it's Caldwell's team that's slowly fading away. And so the challenge begins. The playoffs play a huge part in whether an NFL coach stays or gets fired.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Simply, coaches that don't make the playoffs are fired, and coaches that continually make them stay and get raises. However, that's not always the case. Some coaches on teams that are expected to do well and make the playoffs but don't get past the first round every year are also fired because the fans want to win the Super Bowl. But on the worst teams in the NFL, just winning a few games can cut it because it shows improvement. Jim Schwartz of the Lions took over after the winless season in Detroit and only won a couple of games. But since it was an improvement, he was allowed to stay, and now he's even showing even more improvement as the Lions finished 6-10 this year. Coaches that have proven to be successful and have retired are often considered as candidates for a new head coaching job in the NFL, but most of them turn them down. John Gruden, Bill Cowher, and Tony Dungy are some examples. All of them are now TV announcers, and they say that their coaching careers are over. But that doesn't stop the desperate teams that see their success and jump at them at the first chance they get from offering them a job. Once a head coaching campaign is ended, and either you're fired or retired, your success will determine whether you'll be remembered as a great coach or completely forgotten and forever hated by the fans. Vince Lombardi, Mike Ditka, and George Halas are some example of coaches that were incredibly successful and are now in the Hall of Fame, whereas Dick Jauron, Mike Sherman, and Josh McDaniels will not be remembered for anything because they were unsuccessful and fired. After watching how an NFL coach normally gets his job, some of you might now realize how hard it is to coach the best of the best. Although NFL coaches are paid a lot of money to do what they do, there is much stress and commitment in the NFL head coaching job. So next time an NFL head coach is fired, you can have a little bit more sympathy for them. And we'll just remember how hard it is to coach an NFL team.